Welcome to Shop Talk Live, episode number 360. Before we get started, we've got a couple of announcements to make in regards to the format and personnel of the show. First off, I just want to let everyone know that Amanda is no longer with Fine Woodworking. We wish her the best and can't wait to see what she has in store in the future. With Amanda no longer with us, we felt the need to bring in a second co-host, and we elevated from frequent co-host status to actual 50% host, going to drive the future of the podcast. Hey, Vic.
Hey, man. How's it going?
That's one way of doing it, huh?
You betcha.
So, when everything went down, I thought, you know what? I think it's time for Vic to pull a little bit of heavier load around here and take half the episodes and see what happens. You know, we've been having fun as a duo or whatever for a while, so thank you for being a bigger part of the show. You're already a huge part of the show, but now you're just an undeniable force.
Well, I appreciate just even being offered the opportunity to do it. I think it's great. And so I think what we've decided is that we're going to sort of trade off, right? Like you're going to do an episode as the host, and then I'm going to do an episode at the host, which I think is cool. I'm also a little bit concerned about the fact that means perhaps we don't end up on the show together.
I think we just need to make sure that we do from time to time.
Right. Because I mean, really, without putting too hard an edge on it, some of the best Shop Talk Lives are when you and I are on it together.
Well, I mean, yeah, we just can't keep up that speed.
Right.
The whole time. It's just not fair to the rest of woodworking and the podcast industry in general. So
unfortunately, we're here, we're up here, and everybody else is just sort of trying to keep up. So it's like, the Olympics are going right now, and like there's the Italian downhill skier. I don't remember her name, but she was and that's you and me, Vic. We are the Italian downhill skier of woodworking podcast. You and I, hold on, let's get this right. You and I are the Italian woman skier in the Olympics. You and I are that.
Yes.
It takes two of us to equal one of those.
Yeah. She just won 2 gold medals, so I don't know why you think one of us would be capable of doing anything. But yes, so we are going to make sure that we remain a duo from time to time. But also, I'm just excited because you have like a whole different network of woodworkers than I do, and a whole different perspective on what's important to you and what you want the voices you want to amplify and all of that. So I'm excited for that, and you've always been a huge part of the show, and I'm thankful for you being a bigger part of the show. So,
I think it's going to be good. And I appreciate it. And, starting with this episode, we're going to have Steve Der-Garabedian on, who has been a friend of mine for many, many years, is an incredible woodworker and specializes in veneer work. And he is, I like Steven because he makes things approachable.
Yeah.
And, we've talked about this before, that the veneering, a lot of people sort of freak out about it because they think it's too hard, or it's too next level, or it's too something. And the reality is that it's not, and it's approachable. So having Steve on is going to be great.
And it opens up a whole new realm of woodworking possibilities. In
a world where you don't have to worry about grain direction.
But we talked about this in the episode proper, but it's like a skill like dovetailing or something like that. But dovetailing doesn't really open up like a whole different design.
Right.
Like it's one little element. Whereas veneering, once you learn how to do it, once you get over that hump, like everything changes for you as a 100%. Woodworker. So,
100%.
right off the bat, though, we talk a lot about Steve's book, which is called Veneering Essentials, Simple Techniques and Practical, what is it called? Practical Projects for Today's Woodworker. So that's Steve's book. We will link to it in the doobly-doo. And Vic, why don't you take us away for your first episode?
Sounds good, man. All right. Well, this is exciting. This is like a 2/3 Canadian, 1/3 American production here.
But I feel like I should get a little bit extra credit because I love Canada and
we love you.
I know.
We do.
Well, thank you. Canada is probably my favorite country.
Even though we need snow tires?
That's one thing that I'm not going to joke. I think about that far too often is where would I store snow tires if I had to? Well, but there's other stuff in here.
There's a lot of stuff in there, to be fair.
But like you really have to set aside a lot of room for your snow tire storage.
Well, I don't know about a lot of room, but it's good to have snow tires.
Yes.
And you could use them there where you're at, Ben, because you guys get a decent amount of snow.
Yeah, we just don't go anywhere, though.
I had a cousin come up from California, and it was like late spring, but we had like this whiteout for 10 minutes. She was in full-on panic mode, and I said, relax, I've got snow tires. It's okay. And she's like, you're making that up. There's no such thing as snow tires.
That's
awesome. Like when we used to say to people that like sometimes in the military, the military from like Southern California, from the military down there would come up and like they would come up in February to do winter training, and we would like invent things like snow snakes and various other things that can get you in the snow, and it just snow tires, that's not a thing.
That's not real.
So listen, Steve, you are sort of known up here in Canada and all over the world, really, for your veneering prowess.
Yeah.
So even to the point where you have a book, which is fantastic.
I do have a book here somewhere.
Yeah, you don't have to show it because the majority of people listen to this podcast, apparently. And for the longest time, I was holding things up to the camera and Ben was like, that's no good. You can't do that. Yeah. So I've learned. So don't feel the urge to show us anything.
Okay.
Which was surprising.
Show and tell. Yeah, okay.
Right.
That you were capable
it's just,
of learning.
basically, it's just tell.
So So before we get into questions, like why is veneer so important to you? Like,
So, yeah, I mean, I get asked that a lot. In fact, so I went to Rosewood Studio like you did.
Yeah.
And much like anything, I researched the crap out of everything before I went there. And when I saw veneering, I was like, yeah, I think I'll take a break during that and maybe go to...
I'm a real woodworker.
That's right. How can that, like, fine furniture, veneering? What is that about?
Solid wood or nothing.
And then I got there, and when I was shown how to do it properly, when I realized it's not just cheaply done stuff that delaminates 6 months from now, but when it's done right, it is amazing because one of the big things for me is you eliminate wood movement. The other big thing was if you want to work with the best woods in the world, you must learn to veneer. I think as woodworkers, I think we also need to be environmentally conscious, and I think veneering does that. I remember one of the podcasts I was listening to where Mike was talking about the emerald ash borer and how in Connecticut, white ash might not be around much longer. And my thing was get it and turn it into veneer. You can extend that resource so much more. And really now veneering to me is like, especially my favorite way of doing it is with a vacuum bag. And it just kind of reminds me of that Popeil chicken roaster. You set it and forget it. It's the same thing with the vacuum press. Set it, throw it in there, set it and forget about it till 8 hours later.
So All right, Vic thought he was in charge of this episode, but I'm already going to throw it for a loop. Vic, I know you have like a legit vacuum. Like you have what do you have? You have the orange. What's the brand of your vacuum pump?
What's the brand of my vacuum pump, Steve?
I will now discuss that with you. It's called VacuPress.
VacuPress.
That's it. VacuPress.
You have the orange one, the smaller one.
The smaller one, yeah.
Steve, do you have a VacuPress or do you have something?
I do. I've got the VacuPress. It's the 300, which I believe is green.
So question.
Yeah.
And this is for the room or the audience as well. Do I really need, like, can I not get away with like the Harbor Freight vacuum pump for a while?
So I haven't seen the Harbor Freight one.
Princess Auto, whatever you guys call it.
Yeah, Princess Auto or Rockler.
Yeah. So this has tipped over into a Canadian podcast.
Yeah,
so Princess Auto. Okay.
Yeah.
Auto.
It's an awesome place.
Yeah.
But
They've
you could
got
buy
everything.
like a cheap little vacuum pump there, right?
Yeah.
So what it comes down to is how much, so the volume it can handle. I think if you got the super duper top of the line vacuum press, you could probably run 2, maybe even 3 4x8 bags off of that one pump at the same time.
Sure.
Mine will comfortably do a 4x8 bag, no issues, and still, use it for vacuum clamping as well at the same time. The smaller ones tend to not be, depending on the size of the project, depending on the size of the bag, it might not evacuate the air quick enough before the glue sets.
Okay.
Well, so you also run into a problem of overheating too, right? Like, I mean, those pumps can run hot. So,
yeah, I was talking when I was writing my book. I was talking to the gentleman that started VacuPress, and I forget his name now, but I called down and I said, "Listen, I'm going to use this as a vacuum clamp as well. So, is it okay to keep the pump running that long?" And he said, "Yep, you can keep it running as long as you want." He says, "If you're going to keep it running longer than, I think he said a day, or maybe half a day," he said, "just take the cover off so that it cools down a little better." And I'm like,
take its blanket off.
That's awesome.
I used to have a car like that.
Take the cover off?
Yeah.
Just pop the hood while you went into 7-Eleven and left it running.
Yeah.
Because, all right, so here was my thinking.
Yeah.
Right? Takes half an hour for glue to dry. Like, does it need to be in the bag that long? No.
I think so. If you look at it, so I like to use Type Bond cold press for veneer.
Okay.
If you look on the bottle, I think it says minimum 45 minutes up to 2 hours.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you, I don't take anything out of the bag less than 6-7 hours.
Okay.
And if I'm doing bent, then it's in there overnight. The only time I think you and I talked about this, Vic. The only time I would take it out earlier is if it's a big project and I can't veneer both sides at the same time. What I'll do is I'll apply glue, veneer one side, put it in the bag for about 45 minutes, pull it out, veneer the other side, now put it in for 7-8 hours, whatever it takes. Yeah.
And if you do your pressing at the end of the workday, you know what I mean? You make sure everything's running well and everything is, you're not losing any air, and then just go back to the house and let it do its thing overnight.
But even one of the things that really made me happy is, speaking of pumps, is even doing like a hand pump. So Roar Rocket has a kit that for $100 does the exact same thing as my $1,800 press.
Mm-hmm.
And basically your hands and a one-way pump, a one-way valve is the vacuum pump.
Well, and you can even like stick a shop vac over the
Yep.
inlet, outlet, whatever it is at that point,
Yeah.
and evacuate most of the air. Because
Yeah.
I've seen people like going with
Yeah.
the hand pump and like
Yeah.
really working to get it down. It was like,
Yeah.
why don't you get most of that with the shop vac? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I just let my students do it because
That's how he
I
sells
do have an
electric ones.
adapter. I do have an adapter for my electric vacuum pump that lets me do the manual pump, but I don't show them that till the end of the day.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Well,
I've even tried doing it with like I did an experiment with one of those big Ziploc bags that you can get to put a blanket in, and then you use a vacuum to suck the air out of. And I was shocked, like on a flat press, like I wouldn't trust it for anything bent, but on a flat press, it worked perfectly. And
Yeah.
I was drawing, I don't know, like 12 inches of mercury, I think, which I usually like higher than that, but
Mm-hmm.
it was enough to get the job done. And
So-
those are like $20 for like 5 of them.
So, but this is what I'm thinking though, is that like trying to, if you're just getting into it, if you got the Roar Rocket or whatever, you're right. That's probably the accessible approach, right? I keep thinking for like, CNC work holding, for, a lot of reasons, it would be nice to have a vacuum pump in the shop. And it's always
sure.
I think you're looking at about $500, which is that's an expense that I do not take lightly.
No.
And then I see like these vacuum pumps for HVAC purposes or whatever for, $120. And I think, well, like with the Roar Rocket, if you're just evacuating that air once and then you're leaving it to dry, right?
Yeah.
What would be the difference between plugging up a cheap vacuum pump with a decent bag that isn't going to leak and letting it roll? Because your vacuum pump isn't running the whole time during a 6-hour.
No, it's good to know that it can,
Yeah.
but if I get a good seal, it's coming on ideally maybe once every 20 minutes for like 10 seconds.
All right, so that is more than, in my head, that's more than I thought you were going to say.
What, more often than it
Yeah,
comes?
more often. So with the Roar Rocket, are you keeping an eye on it and hand pumping, or are you just letting it roll?
It really depends on the seal. If it's a seal that's almost, in the next few pressings, it needs to be the tape, the butyl tape needs to be replaced. Then yes, I'm keeping an eye on it. But I've walked away from a bag, like left the house, left the shop, and come back, and there was a leak, and it was down to about 12 or 11, maybe even lower. But I mean, and that while that's not ideal, I think it still worked.
Okay.
It doesn't. I think it doesn't have to be this perfect situation. I think we all.
No, everything needs to be perfect before you start. You need to have all of the gear, you need to have all of the skill, and you need to have all of the monies.
And if you make a mistake, just sell it all.
Yeah. And if it doesn't work out, just, take pennies on the dollar for it and get rid of it.
Get rid of it. Market.
Okay.
Here we go.
So we got some questions, and they need answering. And that's why you're here.
Oh.
We got a question from Joe on Discord, and I'm gonna do that so I can see what I'm reading here. I have a bunch of MDF sitting around and a bunch of veneer I got at a garage sale, so I was thinking of making a veneered box. What is the typical way to go about it? Assemble the box, then veneer it? Cut the pieces, veneer them, then assemble? Veneer the face of the MDF, cut the pieces, then veneer the edges? I can see all of these working, but I'm not sure which way works best. So
this is
they
such
all
a good
sort of
question.
make sense, but
they all make sense. And these are the things that we think about while we're trying to fall asleep as woodworkers.
Right. It's
How
so
many
true.
different ways can I veneer a box?
Apparently,
Right.
I think of different things when I'm falling asleep, but okay.
Well, you're weird, Steve.
Yeah.
Well, then I'm not a woodworker, I guess.
Yeah.
So while you could actually do all of that. However, if you assemble the MDF in the form of a box, I think it's going to be a lot harder to press the veneers. So my instinct right away is to say veneer it while it's still flat and in pieces, or one big piece, and then cut it, and then do the joinery to make the box. I think any other way would be hard pressed to press, pun intended, the veneer to the MDF. And you must always do both sides. While I think sometimes it's okay to actually like MDF isn't so bad that if you veneer one side and wait a day to veneer the other side, it's not so bad. But and the one that surprised me the most was Baltic birch. Baltic birch, I veneered one side and waited for whatever reason, I can't remember. It was a difficult press. Waited, maybe half a day or a full day to do the other side, and it had warped already. So an MDF, I think, is a little bit better at that. But yeah, definitely veneer it before you start assembling the box.
So, all right. So back up a minute though. So when you were writing your book, were you just like, did you have a experiment period where you were just like, all right, I'm just going to veneer this and see what happens. Veneer the, and cause those are the things that people say,
Yeah.
but they don't necessarily have the experience with backing it up. But you veneered a piece of Baltic birch and just had a potato chip immediately.
I felt responsible to the reader to do some research and not just spew out a bunch of stuff. So basically, what I did a bunch of things. One was taking different materials, different thicknesses. So 1/8 hardboard, all the way up to 1/4 inch and 3/8 and 1/2 inch, and even 3/4 inch MDF. Different thicknesses of Baltic birch, and even different thicknesses of wigglewood or wacky wood. We call it wigglewood north of the border. I think you guys call it wacky wood south of the border.
I've always heard it referred to as wigglewood. So
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
And then so I just as an experiment, because I thought Baltic birch, multiple layers, multiple glue lines, so it's going to be the strongest. It's not going to warp at all, but it warped. It did the potato chip the worst. MDF was better, but eventually it did as well. And the other experiment that I did was, because we were always told, you must use veneer tape because masking tape will leave a hump. So I did a bunch of experiments where I used one piece of masking tape.
Wait, hang on. Explain it. We'll leave a hump.
So the way, if you joint and then join veneer on the glue side, you're using masking tape at first to hold it together.
Uh-huh.
Then you flip it over and put veneer tape on the top. And then once you're ready to glue, you peel off the masking tape from the glue side. So we were always told masking tape is too thick, so you can't really leave it there. And you can use up to 3 layers of veneer tape before it will indent or leave a bump or anything like that.
From the vacuum press, like the vacuum pulling the tape into the surface of the wood.
Right.
Okay.
And what I found is, yes, masking tape does leave. If you left the masking tape on the glue side, well, first of all, it's not. There's going to be an area where glue, it's going to be a glue resist, but it does leave a hump. 2 layers for sure. One did 2 layers for sure, 3. I didn't even bother trying that. But it also depended on the species, and it also depended on how thick the veneer was.
That makes sense.
And as far as veneer tape, up to 3, we were always told up to 3 is okay. I only typically do 2 layers. So I put one across the joint, then I do one along the joint, and I've never done more than 3. 3 does, again, depending on the thickness of the veneer, depending on the species, it does, if you left it on the glue side, which veneer tape you can, especially the ones with the holes. It will still, 3 layers left a bit of a bump, which again, you can sand out, but you only have so much veneer to work with.
All right,
And
hang on.
Here's the episode. This is worth listening to. The key to not sanding through veneer is not to sand through the veneer.
Wow. That,
like you just channeled Yoda or something. Like it just.
Yeah.
I'm changed. I'm a changed man. Can we go back real quick to, you were saying leaving the veneer on the glue side or the veneer tape. So first off, for the listener who might not know, veneer tape is a very, very thin tape that it's actually like impregnated with hide glue or something, or
it's like a gum tape, and it comes in different versions where different widths, but it also comes in different versions where there's blank, 2-hole, 3-hole, 5-hole, 9-hole, which I think I think Adrian Ferrazzuti one time did a post and he had some 9-hole veneer tape that was like super wide. I'm like, what would you ever use that for? But I think machine stitchers use the wide stuff. Yeah.
Machine stitchers. What's that?
So basically, it's a $150,000 machine that probably takes up the size of a car. Basically, you slip 2 pieces of veneer on one side of the machine, and in about 4 seconds, pops out the other side stitched.
Just like finished, perfectly seamed veneers.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, isn't it like a thread? Like a thread with glue?
So there is a threaded version, but I think there's also one where it's like heat activated glue or.
Why? Who knew? Well, okay, Steve knows, but like there's like veneer tape. Like in my head, there was 2. There was like this one and that one, and they were the same thing, but with a different packaging.
The whole new world, Ben.
Yeah,
I'm scared.
No. You're gonna be okay.
Okay, all right. Help me. Okay, so you're actually you're seaming a piece of veneer with veneer tape.
Yeah.
And then gluing that in.
So what I'm doing is I'm jointing and then joining 2 pieces of veneer.
Yeah.
And on the glue side, to hold it together, I'm just doing masking tape across the grain. And depending on how well it's going together, maybe every 3 or 4 inches. Unlike Vic, I work in inches, not metric.
I don't want to get in between you two.
No, just a quick side note for that.
Between 75 millimeters and 100 millimeters for those of us who are in this century.
So, but you're taking that masking tape off before.
Yeah, so basically the masking tape is the original. I'm just holding it together.
Yeah.
And then flipping it over, then wetting the veneer tape, doing the exact same thing I did with the masking tape, every couple of inches across the joint, and then one long piece of tape along the joint.
Yeah.
Then typically what I do, because it gets wet, and I much like glue, I put way too much, Vic will attest to his bench will attest to how much glue I put on things. So I put on way too much water. And so what I do is I sandwich it between two pieces of MDF. Otherwise, it'll start to curl. I've seen other people like taking a hot iron to the veneer tape to kind of dry it out right away. I've never had luck with that. Although the only iron in the house in the shop is in the workshop. The rest of my clothes are wrinkly. So then I just put it between two pieces of MDF. By the time I do prep the bag and mix the glue or stir the glue, then I take it out of the sandwich of MDF, slowly peel the masking tape off the glue side.
Mm-hmm.
The veneer tape is now holding it together. Apply glue on top of the MDF, if we're making this box that Joe's talking about, and into the vacuum bag or clamp or, yeah.
So just to clarify, at no time are you leaving veneer tape, like it's never in between the substrate and the veneer. It's always on the top of the veneer, not...
Because for a minute, I thought you were leaving.
You can.
You can?
Yes. So if you're doing... So one of the rules of veneering...
See, I didn't know this.
Yeah. So one of the rules of veneering is, let's say I'm using wiggle wood and the grain is running this way, but I want my face veneer to run this way. So I can't do that. They're both... So what I have to do is I have to cross-laminate backer veneer, okay? So that I stitch together with masking tape and then veneer tape on top. But because on a situation like that, then I'm using veneer tape with the holes. That way there's wood glue to wood contact. And now
is that why the holes are there?
One of the reasons the holes are there. The other reason, I guess, is you can... because some veneer tape comes with a bigger hole in the center, and I guess it's to take a look at your seam to make sure it's still tight.
Oh, I guess.
But if you do the masking tape on the glue side first, I don't even care if I can see the seam or not because I know it's tight.
But to be honest, it's really easy when you're doing the initial joining of the veneers with masking tape to stretch the tape too much. And then that ends up like really pulling the pieces together, and it won't show up on that side. But on the other side, well, I guess technically it is on both sides, but one piece can slip under the other.
Yeah.
Right. And then that's not good because then when you go to press it, you're going to have like 2 layers of veneer basically in some spots. Yeah. And then that's almost impossible to fix. Yeah. But being able to see the glue line just gives you that extra assurance that you haven't done that.
Yeah.
So do you buy wholly veneer tape or solid veneer tape? Or what am I buying is the question.
I have both. But I think
you should have known better.
Yeah, I know.
I have both. But and here's the compromise. The Holy tape is more difficult to remove when it's time to remove the tape, whereas the solid tape peels off a lot easier. Which, again, the Holy tape, it's not so bad because a little bit of scraping, a little bit of sanding, and it's gone.
Huh. Okay.
So there you have it. Yeah. So what we're telling Joe is that
we didn't answer Joe's question at all.
Yeah. No, we did. We did. We answered it 15 minutes ago. But and I agree with Steve, by the way. Veneer the outside, veneer the inside of the piece, cut it up, and then assemble your box.
Yeah.
And then depending on how you're going to do it, if you're going to do a sort of what's been called a Ferrazzuti type box, where he's doing a rabbet that is creating a space for solid wood edging, then now it all just comes together. And you can even go so far as to strategically cut parts out of a larger piece, and so that you get grain wrap and all that other kind of stuff. Yeah. So definitely you want to veneer both sides first and then put it together.
So what are some considerations though for doing joinery tasks and all of that for wood that has been veneered? Because I would assume Are you doing things like cutting joinery in 2 passes so that you've got a score cut on the veneer? Are you doing is this anything you need to worry about, or are you just treating it like wood?
No, I think you need to. I think you need to treat it a little bit differently. So the Ferrazzi method of cutting box joinery is you're rabbiting with the original carcass. You're rabbiting 3 sides, and then the blank side fits into the rabbet of the other one, and now you've got a uh, locking 4 sides, whether it's a square or a rectangle. Um, so in order to cut those rabbets, if you're doing it on the router, you've got to have sharp tools. A helical router bit works better. But the way I do it is I have a Freud makes a blade. I'm sure all the companies do, but Freud makes a blade that is meant for melamine, MDF, and veneer. Basically, it's got more teeth. The one I have is 80 tooth. It's got a negative rake, so instead of like a combination blade or a rip blade, the teeth are not leaning forward; they're actually back, which is actually the same. If you have a blade that cuts aluminum, it has a negative rake, so that
Okay.
works well for veneer as well. And so if I'm cutting the veneer and going partway into the substrate, then that blade you do not get tear out. The other way of doing that is actually using like a track saw.
Mm.
Because you've got the splinter guard on top, the blade is coming up, so you've got the sacrificial piece. And a track saw actually works awesome. And you can make it work even better if you get a blade that's made specifically for veneer, for the track saw.
And you're laying the track on the veneered surface then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Because
and
then
Steve even uses a technique where he cuts and joints veneers with the track saw. He built a
See,
special
I
jig.
was going to bring this up because you had a post, I want to say a year ago now, maybe, or something like that, but you
Yeah.
had a whole weird, but it was like, that's like you're not using a veneer saw most of the time. You're just going, and actually, Steve, you inspired me with it. I bought like a cheap rail, like a short rail,
Yeah.
just for doing that, because I'd like to try that out on
Okay.
ukulele tops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the ultimate jointing. If you have a track saw, you have the ultimate veneer jointing machine. It just works unbelievably well, even with nasty. I think the nasty white curly white ash veneer that wants to chip out in every direction. That track saw does an unbelievable job. And like I said, I think all the companies make a blade for track saw because it is a smaller. What's the diameter on that? Like not even, so 6 inches or something like that. They do make
Sure.
a veneer cutting blade for track saws.
Hmm.
Works awesome.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it really, like, track saws are primarily like a finish carpenter's tool, right?
Yeah.
And who's working with like high-end veneered goods more than
Yeah.
finish carpenters?
Yeah. No, I'm in fact the reason I ended up buying a track saw was because uh, we were doing an article together, you and I, Vic.
I knew you were going to say Vic. Everybody blames Vic for track saws.
Well, I still have a table saw. In fact, he mocks
Oh,
me
thank God.
when I put the styrofoam on top of my table saw and then use the track saw on top of my table saw. And then I get do you see what you're doing? Get rid of your table saw. And I'm like, no, it's my table saw and I will keep it.
Yeah.
It makes me so happy to see him do that. It just, yeah.
Makes me happy too. It's another bench.
love wood. You lovingly choose the wood you use for projects. Then you spend countless hours measuring, cutting, gluing, joining, until your work meets your vision. At Sutherland Wells, they honor your craftsmanship with traditional oil finishes that match the look, feel, and protection that your work deserves. Their small batch, handcrafted finishes and stains start with the highest quality, cold-pressed, American-grown tung oil, polymerized in their Providence, Rhode Island location for unmatched quality and consistency. Their low VOC and VOC-exempt versatile finishes enhance grain, penetrate deeply, resist yellowing, and enhance the natural beauty of wood while providing lasting protection. Sutherland Wells loves wood too. Take 10% off your first order with code FWW26 and see just how beautiful wood can be.
We have another question from the forum, TJ. And now this one's a little bit different here. And so what I'm going to do is, this is a 5-part question. So we're not going to go into the same level of detail. We're going to rapid fire this. Okay.
It's not going to happen.
I say that, but I know what's going to happen. Ben's shaking his head over there, and because he knows what's going to happen. Okay. This is my first attempt with walnut Burl veneer. Very nice choice. So I have several questions regarding creating a balanced panel for my project. I'm planning on a small case piece using 1/2-inch Baltic birch ply as my substrate. Since I'm unfamiliar with the Burl, I don't know what to balance it out with on the interior. My questions are, number 1, when using a Burl, should you use a cross-banding under it? Will such a layer increase stability by increasing the glue surface?
I don't think you need to. I think it's extra work that you don't need to do, unless there's like potholes in there in the
Right.
veneer. If it can swallow your car, you might want to band underneath. But for the most part, I think you don't need to. It's just extra work you don't need to do.
Okay.
I didn't
say the same thing.
That. I didn't think you were going to say that, because in my head you always do a crossband veneer.
No,
and that's only because of the grain. And if there's a Burl, we're saying that there's no real grain to it, or why no crossband veneer now?
I think if I can assume, I think his concern is because Burl veneer comes with, if you hold it up to the light, there's a bunch of pinholes.
Yeah.
So chances of the glue bleeding through, which again, it'll bleed through whether you have a crossband underneath or not, because you would need to apply more glue. If you use a veneer glue, in fact, if you hold up a bottle of Type Bond cold press for veneer that's been sitting around, you'll see the bottom inch is a darker color than the top. You need to mix that, what's the solids, back into the adhesive, and that will resist bleeding through. But if it does bleed through, it's not a big deal. By the time you sand it clean, the bleed through is gone.
All right. Sorry, Vic. We're not getting through this real quick because I have questions.
We're on number 1.
I was trying to do rapid fire.
Well,
now we know why these don't usually go well. Carry on, Ben.
Okay. Veneer glue, I've always thought it was an open time thing. But you're telling me that there's added solids now in Type On cold press.
Crushed up walnut shells.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I think that's what they used to use way back when. I wonder if it's something more synthetic nowadays.
I mean, there's no lack of walnut shells, is there?
No.
Huh. Okay. But there's more to it than open time.
Open time, I would say the open time is no. So if you're using, the people that do vacuum press, they have their own formula called Unibond 1, which is very similar. It's a PVA with solids, and it's very similar to Type Bond cold press for veneer. So the open time and set time for that is no different than type on 3.
Okay.
You've only got a certain amount of time. The only glue that I used to use that had a longer open time was Unibond 800, which formaldehyde based, you had to do the whole hazmat thing and all that, which I've stopped using. And the advantage of that was, depending on the ratio that you mixed it in, the solids to the liquid, you had 20 minutes open time, maybe 40 minutes open time, depending on the ratio. And the other thing with that was there was no cold creep. It dried rock solid. In fact, the squeeze out was like shards of glass. You would have to almost wear Kevlar gloves to get rid of the shards.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah,
No.
that's
Number
a good
2.
question.
Yeah.
Come
That's a
on,
good
Vic. Get
good
to
question.
it. Roll,
Yes.
man.
Hold on a minute. So, number
He
2.
looks
Okay.
sophisticated with the glasses. Eh?
So, listen, I'm not
Are you
enjoying
saying
these glasses.
sophisticated?
I'm looking over them at you,
Yeah.
Stephen.
No, Stephen.
Since I can't discern a grain pattern, and that's something else that needs to be said too about Burl, is that like you're not really worried about cross-banding Burl because Burl doesn't really have a grain direction. It's all over the place. So I mean,
Yeah.
but
Grain direction is chaos.
but he's onto it, right? So since I can't discern a grain pattern to a Burl, is there any need to be concerned about directionality?
Not really.
I mean, other than aesthetics, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, you can get some veneer that has a bit of burl and then some straight grain coming out of it and so on. And a lot of times it really depends on the burl and what you're doing, because burls will only come in a certain size. If you're doing a big project, where you're jointing burls to get a bigger piece and so on. Yeah, it's not. It's yes. It grain direction is less of a concern with that. But if you are concerned, then just veneer over something man-made like hardboard or MDF.
Right. Now, I tend to, the only time I ever used Burl was on smaller projects where I didn't have to put two of them together,
Yeah,
because the nightmare is trying to like
yeah,
have it look good. And I mean, I saw like these massive, when I was working at the wood store, they had, these crazy walnut burls that were like 16, like I would say like 2-foot squares
yeah.
of walnut burl stitched together so that they made this giant piece. And I just thought they looked awful because there was no way, like, even if you book match it, right, there's no way to make it look good because it just doesn't line up anywhere.
It can look busy. It can make things. I'm more of the less is more kind of woodworker, and
Except for glue.
Burl, except for glue, right? Yeah, glue and masking tape. It's like it's never ending.
Vic,
But
is Steve why you use a Swiss cheese bench? Because there's less surface area for the glue to drip onto?
Yeah, because it can drain.
Yeah.
I have been told that I put a few type on engineers kids through university. That was me.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, less is more, and I think burls can sometimes be very busy.
It can get garish quickly.
Yeah.
Garish.
Yeah. Okay. Number 3. Unless, Ben, you've got something else.
No objections.
The debrief after this episode is going to be awful. We should record that. That'd be funny. Do I need to be concerned about the interior veneer species or directional placement to ensure balance and a stable panel? Are there better woods than others to use?
No.
Just whatever's cheap?
If it's something that's going to be seen, if it's say it's a box and the inside's going to be a little bit different, you can still pick something that's beautiful, but no, it's not a concern of if it's Burl, it has to be Burl on the other side. The only rule with that is what you do to one side, you must do to the other side.
Can I ask a question about that rule?
Yes.
If I use like 1 millimeter veneer, or sorry, Steve, 40 thou, um,
At least using thousands.
yeah, what would that be? I gotta look up what
1/256th or something.
Can I just, is it like veneer on both sides, or does it have to be equal thickness veneer on both sides?
I guess in a perfect world, it would be the same thickness on both sides, but realistically, it's not. I wouldn't say so. If you've done some shop sawn veneers that are typically thicker, and then you've got 1/40th of an inch commercial veneer on one side, would it make a difference? Maybe, but as long as what you do on one side, you keep the balance and do the same on the other side. It's no, it's really the glue that you're putting down is sealing both sides.
Gotcha.
So the thickness of the veneer doesn't really come into play.
Yeah, and I can remember when Adrian was at Rosewood teaching, and I did one of his boxes, and I did Carpathian elm on the outside, and then I did a really heavy curled maple on the inside.
Yeah.
Which I'll never do again, because trying to get seams and stuff in maple is just it's a nightmare. But I wanted the curl to run vertically, and which meant then the grain had to be horizontal. And I remember asking Adrian that exact question, like, does it matter? And he's like, well, Adrian, he's like, nothing matters.
Yeah.
It's all good. You do whatever you want to do.
Do it.
Yeah. He's like the ultimate free range chicken. He's
He
just
is
like,
the
do it. Just do it. So yeah.
Adrian to me is like that guitar player who's like, oh, it doesn't matter what amp I use. It's like, no, well, I don't have that. I don't have, like, I'm not the greatest guitar player in the world, so it does matter what amp I use.
Right.
But like Adrian can just get away with anything because he's Adrian Ferrazzuti.
Yeah. Okay, so it doesn't matter, is what we're saying.
I notice you don't complain about how much glue he uses.
Oh no, I do. I think it's excessive, but he knows that. He doesn't make any bones about it.
Yeah.
Okay. So then number 4, would an MDF faced ply core be better than the birch? So they're talking about like a multi-core, right? Where you have like, and this is something I only learned about recently. Well, not recently, actually. It was, I went down to the Kazurakai event that happens at the shop there. What's the name of that shop, Ben? The one that's close to... Yeah.
Rowan Woodworks?
Yeah. And it was, and his name just fell right out of my head.
Owen. Who's now on staff at Fine Woodworking.
On staff at Fine Woodworking. He showed me that material, and I was like, oh, wow, I didn't even know this was a thing. So it's like an MDF, it's like half an inch of MDF and then 2/8 inches of veneer core or veneer. And then now you have like, you've got the flatness of the MDF, but you've also got the tooth of the wood to, take fasteners or whatever. So does that matter? Is that instead of the birch?
I don't think it matters. I mean, the what it comes down to. So the dictionary meaning of veneering is to put beautiful wood over top of ugly wood. So as long, I don't think it makes a difference. With burls, I'm wondering if I had to fall on one side, I would say maybe something more man-made, something like that is probably a little bit better, but I don't know that it's gonna, with modern glues, I don't think that it's gonna hold any better. So again, it's one of those things where in my shop, I'm keeping things simple. I'm veneering over MDF. I'm veneering over Baltic birch. You know, you can also veneer over steel or glass. So it's less, to me, it's less about the complications of the core than it is attaching it to it. And with, again, just with modern glues, I think it's not an issue anymore.
Okay.
If you could only have one substrate, what would it be?
That depends.
You're stuck on an island with the
No. This is it. This is the conversation.
and if I could only have one substrate,
Yeah.
quarter-inch MDF.
Whoa!
Wow. Because you can stack.
Dang, Steve threw down.
Yeah.
Why quarter-inch? Why not?
Because I can make it thicker, but
Yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, you really, like, you went next level with that one.
Yeah.
Dang, man.
And quarter. The funny thing is, when I first started, as woodworkers, we all know the thing about, you put a piece of MDF in a cup of water, and it expands like those little zoo animals we used to get in a package.
Just don't do that.
And so my big thing with, I would never, when I first came out of Rosewood, I would never veneer over MDF because I thought, well, using a water-based glue, so it's going to explode, and then I was thinking, okay, well, Michael Fortune veneers over MDF. So if it's okay for him, it's probably okay for me as well. Right. So, and I wouldn't have to worry about grain direction. I wouldn't have to, that quarter-inch MDF, the ultimate substrate.
Well, here's my question then, and this is for real because like I've never actually done.
Was my question not real?
No, yours was real. But like,
now that Ben's done.
Yeah.
Here's a
now that
question.
He's done wasting our time, here's the real question.
It's realer.
It's realer. Here's the question. So, and again, this was an observation that I made. I have no actual like experience with this particular question, but when I worked at the wood store, the flattest material we had was 3/4 inch particle core, veneered both sides with like a commercial veneer, right? And I had cabinet makers that would come in there and would absolutely swear that it is far more stable, far flatter than MDF or veneer core, which I get the veneer core. Veneer core is not flat. It's just not, right? But I started thinking about that, and it's like when IKEA makes a countertop, they've got a full inch of particle core, and then they've got almost an eighth of an inch veneer top and bottom of whatever the wood is that they're putting down, whether it's beech or whatever that they're using.
Yeah.
But it's the particle core. Have you veneered on particle core to be able to say it's more stable or not?
The big disappointment in the last 5, 6, maybe a bit longer years is the condition of Baltic birch, in that I don't know if it's just because it's stored wrong, but there's Baltic birch comes warped almost. It's never flat. And it used to be years ago you could veneer it flat. So that
back when Steve was young.
Back in my day. You could veneer it flat. So if there was a bit of a warp, you could, veneer, and you're making, a tabletop. So you could veneer, press it over a flat melamine surface in the vacuum bag, and it would stay flat. I'm finding in the last little while, it's been really disappointing to pick up Baltic birch, and you need something that's a bit longer. It stays, and I'm not talking twist or anything. It's just a noticeable sag or a hump, and it's really disappointing. Which again, MDF, nice and flat. But I haven't, again, keeping things simple in my shop. It's Baltic birch, which again, if you use it in the smaller sections, you don't have to worry about if it was stored wrong. But Baltic birch, MDF, and yeah,
No
uh,
particle cord.
and yeah, I've used it, but nothing again. I'm not going to go out of my way to pick it up.
I've only ever used it when I needed something to weigh more. Like, because that stuff is heavy.
Yeah.
So for acoustic reasons, I've made like sound bars with particle core.
Yeah.
What about speakers? Would that be good speaker cab material?
Probably. Yeah.
What do they typically use for speakers?
A lot of MDF.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say.
Yeah.
Usually
a lot of MDF, but then there's like, there's people who think, the Fender sound the way that Fender cabinets sound the way that they do because it's finger jointed pine as opposed to Marshall's used Baltic birch it's like, yeah.
Those are forum discussions.
Adrian Ferrazzuti is going to sound like Adrian Ferrazzuti.
Yep. No matter what he's made out of.
Yeah.
Okay. And the last question of our 5-part question. Lastly, would a rigid glue be better to ensure stability? So I think he's like going back to the fact that we're talking about bonding a Burl onto a substrate. Is it better to use like a PVA versus a Unibond, like a urea formaldehyde that like has zero creep? Is that going to matter?
Steve's just been shaking his head no this whole time.
I don't think
I don't think
audio only audiences. He was done with this question the moment Vic started asking.
Modern glues, modern like cold press for Type Bond, or if you go with the Unibond one from Vacuum Press, the Burl, it's not going to make a difference. Modern glues do an amazing job of sticking veneer to substrate, and just make sure that you stir the solids back into the adhesive. So you can't shake it. You must stir it.
Anti-bond.
Yeah.
James Bond. James
Bond's the opposite, right?
But the bond, there's too many bonds going on there.
So you must. So here's the thing. So when I was talking with somebody from Type On about that, they said, you can't shake it. So basically you need to take a long stick, jam it into the bottle, and use the neck as a fulcrum and stir the adhesive back, or the solids back into the adhesives. And I'm like,
which is a nuisance.
So the smallest paint stir will not fit into the bottle of the Type Bond cold press. But I would much rather veneer and actually woodwork than stir glue. So we were at the local Dollarama, and there was 2 fly swatters for $2.50. And I was like, ooh, the light bulb went off. And so I took it home, cut the handle off, cut the fly swatter part to a smaller section, bent it, put it in, chucked it in the drill, and now I can use my drill to stir the glue instead of the Warlock thing and mixing the potion.
See, you should sell that back to Type On.
That's a good point.
Here's a new product. Now you owe me 4 bottles of glue.
Which I will go through in one person.
Yeah, that's right. The way Steve goes through it, you better ask for 8. But what's funny, Ben, is that when you see this fly swatter, it looks ridiculous now, of course, because it's
it sounded ridiculous. Don't worry. I mean, that came through.
And then Steve starts telling people stories about how he got so good at swatting flies that he needed to make it more difficult. And so by decreasing it to 1 square inch, now the fly had more chance than.
That's right. I've become a sensei of flies swatting.
That's not where I thought I was going. Oh man.
But listen, I'm really happy that we had Steve on today, because I think I think despite seeing beautiful woodworks that are done in veneer, I think people are still very much sort of like tentative about it and don't want to. And that's what I've always, if I can dote on Steve a little bit, what I've always liked about Steve is that he makes the whole process approachable, right? And in his book, he does things like he veneers to metal. So you can make like a magnetic board that is veneered in your favorite, material, and it looks incredible. But, and again, it's not a difficult thing to do. I think as we learn woodworking and as we come with new, every time you try something new. Ben makes ukuleles. I think he's nuts, because it's like, I think there's too much like fiddly bits, but Ben's like, nah, it's not that hard, really. You just got to, do this, and this. And so that's really what it's all about, is that anytime you learn something new woodworking wise, it's hard until you know. And then once you know, it's like dovetails, right? Everybody freaks out about dovetails. And it's like, dovetails are the easiest thing in the world to cut. They're hard to perfect, but you can get functional dovetails pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And so I think that I think what your book does really well, Steve, is it doesn't get too precious about it. It just is like, here's how you do this, and then you can, once you learn the basics, you really can just take off and start doing Ferrazzuti level stuff with a little bit of practice.
I really appreciate you saying that. That's awesome. Thank you so much for saying that. And I think there is a lot of hesitation about veneering, but in the book, the first project you can do for less than $30, which again, you don't need to, even if you don't want to spend the $100 on the Roll Rocket vacuum bag, if you have a clothes iron that reaches the cotton setting, if you have some PVA glue, you can veneer with a clothes iron and glue you probably already have. You probably even have the clothes iron already. But if you want to keep domestic harmony, go out and buy another one for $20.
Get your own.
Yeah. But there's veneering is an awesome way of woodworking, and I hope people give it a try. It's not that hard.
What's the name of your book, Steve?
It's called Veneering Essentials by Cedar Lane Press.
And if you're going to try and find it via Steve's last name, good luck. But Steve,
yes,
D-E-G-A-R. Vic already cut me off. How do you spell your last name for the audience?
Let me think about this. No. So it's Steve, and the last name is Der-Garabedian, which is spelled DER-GARABEDIAN.
All right.
You should have seen his hockey jersey.
Referees would make me stretch out my arms on the occasion that I would get a penalty.
Which was all the time. Thanks so much for being with us, Steve. This was great.
It was awesome being here. Thank you so much. I appreciate the kind words, and keep up the good work.
Hey, this is the part where I normally start giving you the outro spiel, but I want to try something new. Before we go, I want to let you know about what you're going to find in this week's show notes. First off, of course, I am linking to Adrian Ferrazzuti's Veneered Boxes with a Twist. It is both an article and a video workshop, a multi-part series. Awesome video. I was blown away by it. Also, I'm going to link to Owen's Plywood and Sheet Goods for the Woodworker. Vic mentioned it. And I'm also going to link to Scott Grove's Working with Burl Veneer and Bob Van Dyke's Introduction to Wood Veneering, where he talks a lot about flattening out highly figured and burl veneers. So those are some of the links that you're going to find in the show notes. Also, I am going to include a video from VacuPress. I was just tooling around their website, after this conversation, that buy now button trigger finger gets a little itchy. But I just found a great video from VacuPress that is, of course, covering their products, but also talking about various types of vacuum pumps and why you don't want to use a budget vacuum pump that you can buy at a local tool store. All right. So if you're watching on YouTube, please click that thumbs up button. And if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, a 5-star review would be awesome. Thanks again to my buddy Vic for stepping up here. And I'm super excited to have him be a bigger part of the show. And I think a lot of y'all will too. Another big part of this show that goes unmentioned, thank you to Jeff Rose for expertly mixing and assembling everything that we're doing here. And we'll see you in 2 weeks with another episode. Zoom, 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 and a boom, boom.